Have you ever tried to make a bread at home? Maybe you may think it's too difficult or it requires baking skills. No, it doesn't, and it's super easy. It will require only a couple of minutes of your time. The bread dough is versatile, so I will share with you another two recipes where I will use the same dough. Once you master this recipe, you will be able to bake bread in different environments and also prepare delicious pizza as is from an Italian restaurant. Here are the ingredients that I use for bread dough: flour, water, salt, dry yeast. You may also have a look at the utensils. Once I prepare all ingredients, I start with weighting and combining dry ingredients: flour, salt, and dry yeast. I like to sieve flour for baking. It is not a must. The bread will get nice without sieving the flour. Sifted flour is lighter and easier to mix with other ingredients. For the best results, I recommend using flour 00. I use the coarse sea salt for cooking. The quality is much better than the other refined salts. As for the yeast, I use very needed minimum to help the dough rise. There is a natural process needed for the dough to work itself up that will result in the delicious genuine bread taste. Once all dry ingredients are in the bowl, I'll mix them with a spoon. Next step is to combine water with dry ingredients. For 500 grams of flour, I use about 350 grams, but not more than 375 grams of water. You may start with 350 grams of water and then, depending on the texture of the dough, you may add more water. I stir water with dry ingredients until there is no dry flour in the bowl. My hands are clean and it takes me about 5 minutes to combine all ingredients and prepare the bread dough. The last step is to cover the dough with a plastic bag and tighten with a rubber band, or you may use a ball airtight cover, whatever you have. I put the ball with the dough in a refrigerator and let it rest for not less than 8 hours, but not more than 48 hours. So either I prepare dough in the evening before I go to sleep or in the morning before I go to work. After the needed resting time in a refrigerator, I take the bowl out and let it rest for half an hour to 1 hour at the room temperature. The dough I am showing was waiting for 1 hour. I am going to form the dough in a ball. This is the technique I like to use when I am working the dough on a wooden board with a dough scraper. With a circle movement, I create a nice smooth dough ball that I place back in the bowl. I cover it again and let it rest now at the room temperature for not less than 6 hours, ideally 8 to 12 hours. Again, it can work out overnight or the time you are at work. If I do not have wooden board or dough scraper around, there is another technique that I use to form a dough in a ball. But for this technique, I start after 15 to 30 minutes when I take the dough out from the refrigerator. This is because the dough is being stretched and rolled in a ball. If the dough is warm, it will stick on the kitchen board surface. As you see, I am stretching the dough and then folding into a small square. Then I join all corners in one. After that, I slide the dough a couple of times over the kitchen board surface and create a nice smooth ball. For the dough forming, I needed about 5 minutes. Next, I wait for the dough to rise at the room temperature, as I already mentioned, not less than 6 hours, ideally 8 to 12 hours. For baking, I use a stainless steel pot. I put the pot with the lid in the oven and heat on 250 degrees Celsius with upper and lower heat. Meanwhile the oven is getting heated, I prepare the dough for baking. I remove the dough from the bowl and pour it on a wooden board dusted with flour. I gently turn the dough upside down so the whole surface is slightly wrapped in flour so it does not stick. I work gently with the dough as I do not want the dough to lose its lightness and puffiness after rising. Then I put the dough on a baking paper. When the oven is ready for baking, I take the hot pot out of the oven and put the dough with the baking paper in the pot. I covered the pot with a lid and place it back in the oven. The pot should be placed at the bottom of the oven, so make sure you have removed all trays from the oven. I bake the bread for 30 minutes with the lid on. After 30 minutes of baking, I remove the lid and continue baking for another 10 minutes. After 40 minutes, the baking is completed. I remove the pot from the oven and then bread from the pot. If you like brownish bread surface, you may add 2-3 minutes of baking time without a lid. I transfer the bread on the wooden surface to rest for another 10 minutes. Bread is ready for eating. My working time on the bread was about 15 minutes. The rest hard work was done by dough itself and the time. I usually count backwards to plan desired baking time. The taste of this bread is rich and light since it was naturally risen. It is easy digested, it is wrapped in delicious crispy crust. It is super easy with promising great results. If you like this recipe, give it a like and subscribe. Enjoy your baking. And here is Sarah and I tasting the bread. She could not miss it.
No? Sarenka?
My tasty and delicious. Ano?
That's good.